What's going on, boys and girls, and welcome back to Nth-Level Entertainment, the most awesome geek and car culture YouTube channel in South Africa. I am your host, Mahlam, and welcome back to my 50 greatest films ever made review series. And today we're reviewing 3 Iron, aka the height of being played by a woman. I'll get to what I mean by that later on in the review. So 3 Iron is basically, it's a South Korean foreign language film, and it was directed by Kim Ki-pak. So the film basically follows 2 protagonists who actually never speak throughout the film, and the exposition within delivered by other characters who have speaking roles in the film. I wouldn't exactly call it a silent film because only 2 of the characters don't speak. All of the other characters, whenever there is a situation where exposition is needed to be delivered, one of the characters that actually speak out loud will be the ones to deliver the exposition. So the film follows a character who I just call the protagonist because his name is never mentioned in the film, who's basically a vagrant that goes around staying in other people's houses, and he has a system by which he does this. He basically puts a delivery menu, like Mr. D delivery, for example, like a pamphlet on their front doors. He hangs it there and then he waits for about 24 hours. If he comes back the next day and the menu is still there, to him that indicates that the people who live in that house are not there. So he then takes that as an opportunity to stay in that house for however long he needs to. And it's interesting in how that he's sort of like a criminal with a conscience, because while he stays there, he actually performs menial tasks for them. He cleans their laundry, he cleans their house, he eats their food and uses their shower and everything like that, and sleeps in their beds. But he always makes sure that the beds themselves are made. He makes sure that their clothes are cleaned. He even fixes whatever broken electronics he can find just to help them out. Sort of like as a balance thing to, in a way, thank them for their hospitality, even though he's not supposed to be there in the first place. And eventually he comes across a house where he does this. He hangs a delivery menu, and then he sees that the delivery menu has not yet been removed. And then he stays in the house only to find out that the man who owns and lives in the house is away, but his girlfriend or wife, I'm not sure, I think it's his girlfriend, is actually in the house as well. And she actually sort of watches him from the shadows without her knowing that he's there. And she sees him do all these things, like cleaning their clothes and fixing the electronics and everything like that. And in this particular house, I think the guy is a golf fan or a golf player. And he uses his golf balls and clubs in his mini putt course and everything, and she watches him do all this until one day she actually confronts him by just basically showing up and showing him that someone lives here. And in that moment the phone rings, her boyfriend phones, and you can hear over the phone that she's in an abusive relationship. From like how he shouts at her, he uses abusive language. He even hears some of the voicemails that she's left before on the answering machine, which is very sort of antagonistic towards the girl and all of that. And she, of course, says nothing. So eventually, the boyfriend actually comes home, and the guy is still there because now the girl has now allowed him to stay there. And she actually allows him to continue doing these things and cleaning his clothes. And eventually, when the boyfriend comes home, he exhibits some of his abusive behavior towards the girl. And when he sees this, he shows his disdain by showing himself that he's there, and he starts playing with his golf clubs outside. When the guy goes outside to try and confront him, he swings all the golf balls in his direction to, of course, cause physical bodily harm. And in that moment, him and the girl actually sort of go off on their own, and she follows him around on this vagrant lifestyle. And she actually sort of like learned the tricks of the trade as well. She sort of like lives this lifestyle with him. And in those sequences, we actually see a bit of character development as she starts adopting some of his traits. She also knows, the tricks of the trade in terms of, we do this, we do that for these people, we clean the stuff, we fix the things. Until eventually they come across a house where the owner of the house was actually dead in the house. He's basically lying on the floor with like a puddle of blood around him, and I think his dog is there, curled up next to it, but the dog is still alive. And what they do is they bury the guy, and they continue staying there until the guy's family comes looking for him. And then, of course, they find this couple there and report them to the police. So when the police arrest them, they actually contacts this girl's boyfriend to say that, look, we found your girlfriend, you reported her missing. Then he comes to the police station, he takes her home, and then this guy, he stays there for questioning and all of that stuff. And when the guy takes his girlfriend home, he realizes that now their relationship is a little different. She's now standing up to him and all of that. And out of spite, he bribes the police officers that arrested the protagonist to actually sort of abduct him, so to speak, and bring him to that guy so that he can fling golf balls at him. And then eventually they arrest him and put him in prison. So something interesting happens while he's in prison. He sort of like, he does these weird antics to sort of mess with the prison guards who are watching over him by hiding in corners and finding different ways to sort of mess with them and hide from them and all of that. He develops this trick of actually staying out of a person's field of view by being behind him. And the trick to it apparently is that, the human eye or whatever can only see 180 degrees in their field of view. So he just basically stays in the 180 degrees, and that way he ensures that no one will see him. And this exposition is delivered by the prison guard who catches him do this. And this goes on for a while until he's released. And in the third act, he starts sort of acting as a bit of like a ghost or a South Korean Batman in a way, where he's sort of like, spooking out and getting revenge on some of the people that have wronged him before in the film by sneaking around in their houses while they're actually there now, and employing these tricks that he learns in prison on how to stay out of their field of view while doing certain things to mess with them and so on and so forth. And then eventually he goes to this girl's house, the other character who doesn't speak as well, and whilst her boyfriend was there, and he messes with them as well. And then this is where we now get to what I call the height of being played by a woman, where the guy suspects that there's someone in the house, but of course he doesn't find the guy because he's now perfected his invisibility technique, so to speak. And he goes back into the bedroom. She comes out, and then she looks into a mirror, and then he appears behind her. And at some point, this culminates into a scene where this girl tells the guy, the abusive boyfriend, that I love you. And this turns out not to be the case. Well, not to be the case in the sense that she's not actually speaking to him. While he hugs her, the guy comes out of the shadow, and over this guy's shoulder, they start making out while he's actually hugging her. So that is, ladies and gentlemen, the height of being played by a woman. It's a very interesting film. Oh yeah, and how the film ends, that the next morning the guy goes off to work, and then the two of them are now in the house, and they get up to their romantic antics. So the film ends at that point. So we're not sure whether he's now going to continue this lifestyle of just being this ghostly shadow that sleeps with this guy's wife while he's in the house or not. The film doesn't actually explain that conclusively as to what goes on afterwards. But yeah, that's the film. That's where it ends. It's a very interesting film. I believe that the reason why it lands up on the 50 greatest films of all ever made list is because of the unique way in which the story goes. These two characters that don't speak to each other, but you can tell what's going on through how they behave, through their gestures, whatever nuances that they sort of perform towards each other socially, and the exposition is delivered by the other characters. It's the ultimate way of using the very fundamental film technique of show don't tell, because without them saying a word, we know exactly what's going on between them. We know exactly what they're thinking through their actions and how they retaliate to certain things that happen to them. And I believe that's the main sort of aspect of the film that actually makes it such a phenomenal film that it lands on this list. Because it takes basic film techniques and it just blows them up exponentially. It's a foreign language film, but you can still understand what's going on. So that just shows how well it's shot and edited. That you're still not lost in the narrative, despite the fact that the two main characters don't speak and it's a foreign language film. So, not my usual cup of tea, but based on how creatively and unique the film was, I was impressed. It was a good watch, So if you guys have seen this film, let me know in the comments down below, and let me know what you thought of it. If you enjoyed this video, please click on the thumbs up icon and give us a like. If you'd like to see more from Nth-Level Entertainment, please click subscribe and be sure to ring the bell icon so you are notified each and every time I drop new content on this here channel. Again, people, I have been Nth-Level, and thank you so much for hanging out with me. I urge you to take care of each other, stay awesome, stay chasing your dreams to infinity and beyond.